Hi everyone, welcome back to JPWHUTV. This is the first ever podcast for the channel. My hands are sweating like crazy. I'm very, very nervous, but I'm starting off with a very, very good friend of mine, and the reason why I'm going to be skint for the next 3 weeks until I get paid again, because all he's done since we started talking about the channels were podcast. So I spent a shed load of money. I hope it shuts him up. Don't know him. He's Tim Milliken from American Hammers TV. Hi Tim, how are you doing?
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate this. And happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It feels weird doing a podcast on the day, the anniversary of the FA Cup final. It feels weird doing this. I never thought I'd ever do this. Before I go any further, I just want to say that this channel is sponsored by 3retro.com. There is a link in the description below that will take you directly through to all of their retro West Ham gear, such as this shirt. You can purchase shirts from the 60s through to the early 2000s. There's also Umbro and Admiral track jackets, sweatshirts, t-shirts and polo shirts, so go check that out. Every time you make a purchase through that link, you will help out funding the channel. So thank you very much for any purchases that you may make. Now, why can't I do that when it takes me about 15 takes to get that done when I'm doing my videos. I don't know why I can do it perfectly fine now. I've got no excuses.
Because your back's against the wall because it's live, so you have to do it right. Yeah. You only get one take.
So Tim, you guys, I'm just absolutely blown away by the podcast you've been doing since the end of January, beginning of February. You've had some fantastic guests on. What was it? Last night you had Dave Walker from Sex, Drugs and Carlton Cole. Brilliant interview once again. You've had some really, really cool people. You've introduced me to some really cool people. I'm really looking forward to trying to get some time with Lee. That would be interesting to see how that goes. But first and foremost, guys, check out the American Hammers TV. As I say, they've only been going by the end of January, beginning of February, and their growth has been superb because of the amount that basically Tim's whoring himself out to everybody he can possibly find.
Pretty much.
So, but yeah, the growth is unbelievable. The sub count is almost halfway to what mine is at the moment. So I'm very envious. It's taken me over a year to get this far. You've done it in 4 months. But as I say, it's because you've put out some quality content. As I say, I've been on there a few times myself. Never been this nervous because I'm not hosting. And even though you and I co-hosted when we spoke to Paul Coburn from Hammers TV, Hammers United. It was just that was a different level. Again, a lovely bloke to talk to, very calm, wasn't the sort of person that anybody was expecting him to be like, and very good. But anyway, I'm rambling as I always do. Tim, introduce yourself to the channel. First and foremost, mate, how did you get into West Ham?
Well, thanks for the kind words, first and foremost. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I got into West Ham. It's one of those things where it did find me. I started off by I needed video games to play, that weren't the typical American sports, because I was getting really just disgruntled and over the whole thuggery of not thuggery as in hooliganism and stuff like that. Not what the fans do, but like the actual stuff on the field. You watch an NFL match these days, it's just fist fights. Same thing with the NBA. Same thing with even baseball. It's just ridiculous. There's no sport. They keep polishing up the sports over here. So anyway, long story short, I was trying to find some soccer games to play. Everything from Championship Manager, which is now Football Manager, to FIFA, and I didn't want to. I'm not one to pick the I'm not a glory hunter. I don't pick the top teams when I play these games. I usually pick the underdog, and it just so happened that one of the first teams that randomly selected I was able to pick was West Ham. I love the colors, love the badge, fell in love with it immediately, and then I started doing well with those games, and I'm like, those teams, and I just said, I'm going to start doing research on this, because I get obsessed with pretty much anything I fall in love with, and I've done my research in the club, and the more and more research I did, the more I said, this working class club, that is me, the underdog club, that is me, forever blowing bubbles, that is me, So I did a little bit digging in my personal history, and yes, my family, traces on my mother's side to, east of London, over past Romford. So I felt that, this is technically my home club as well. But no, I fell in love with the club, fell in love with everything about it, the colors, the badge, everything. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, I guess, my history with it.
Cool. I mean, to be honest with you, one of the things I was very surprised at from watching your podcast with Dave Walker last night is how much me and him have got in common. His family, as he said, were from the Chelsea way, and they moved over to East London, to Hainault, which is, funnily enough, about an hour. Sorry, an hour. It's about 3/4 of a mile away from where I'm living at the moment. So it was. I already knew that he was from Hainault, but I didn't know about how he got into it, and it's pretty much exactly the same way, except completely geography swap.
Yeah.
Mum's side of the family were Barking in more ways than one, if any of them were watching. And my dad was Northern. We basically grew up in Sunderland, which is the next town over from Newcastle, and they basically met in London, and we moved over to Surrey, which is not that far from where Dave's parent, or Dave's dad, I think you said was from. So, and that's kind of the way that I got into West Ham, was the family connection. I know I've said it on my introduction video, but I know nobody has gone back to this beginning of last season to look at those. So I thought I'd reiterate on that.
Yeah, of course.
So, okay, so that's quite good, because it's good that you got the culture background the same as me.
Yeah, but
most other West Ham supporters, really, to be honest. I mean, obviously,
I'd say it started about 2008 for me, and then I didn't really become obsessed with the club until the relegation season, midway through the relegation season in 2010, 2011. So I'd say my first full season as a West Ham fan was the 11-12 season in Championship, which was the most exciting time to be a West Ham fan, obviously, because they're winning all the time. Championship, whenever we're in the Championship, it's always a good time, even though we don't want to be there. We want to be doing that in the Premier League. I've been super obsessed. My favorite match definitely was that game against Blackpool at Wembley, the championship playoff final. But yeah, so anyway, it's just amazing that, I go from watching it on my laptop on top of my dresser, because that was the best internet connection I had, to be able to stream these random foreign streams of West Ham's matches in that championship season, because they weren't really broadcast over here. And then 2 years later, every single match was broadcast. Every single match in the Premier League was broadcast over here. And then they started taking that away again. They only do select matches, unless you want to watch it in Spanish, which I don't have a problem with. I have. I've watched half the matches this year in Spanish. Thanks to Chicharito, because that, his connection with Mexico and the Latin audience allowed them to, West Ham's matches to all be played over there. So that was kind of cool.
I'll tell you one thing: the best way to watch football is watch it through a Saudi Arabian link. The commentators are very, very passionate when a goal's scored, even more than the Mexican channels. It's very, very entertaining. You're guaranteed over the 90 minutes to hear at least 3 references to Bobby Moore. They still do it. Because that's how everybody knows West Ham is through Bobby Moore, and obviously the World Cup as well, for that matter, not just from his West Ham stint. Okay, so basically, because if I remember from what you said, if I remember correctly, you never got to see the old ground, the bowling.
No, and I regret that. It's just, at the time when I had the opportunities potentially to come over, it just wasn't financially viable, because we're talking, $1,000, round trip, plus hotel, plus tickets, plus everything. And, I just started my family, and it just didn't make sense for me. So I'm not by any means a millionaire or, wealthy or anything like that. So, I'm working class, and it didn't make sense for me to do. I couldn't justify it, is my point. Even though I regret it, like tenfold. I regret not going there. I did get to go to that neighborhood and see the bowling gone. you know, and I got to see the old supporters club, you know, in ruin pretty much. And I got to see the Long Live the Boleyn mural and the statue of Petershurst and more. And I got to, you know, go in the Boleyn and the tavern, and you know, there was nobody in there except staff. You know, I did hang around the neighborhood, which is kind of cool, but it just hurt me so much that I didn't get to go see the Boleyn. Now
it is a massive shame that we moved. I don't miss Green Street on match day. I really don't. I miss everything else apart from that, because walking down Green Street on match day, depending on what time you got there, you had to you basically had to walk in the middle of the road. Now it was dangerous, to say the least, but I miss everything about it. For me personally, because my family connection, it goes back 4 generations. Yeah, literally pretty much right from the Thames Ironworks days, where our great granddad used to work there, if memory serves correctly. So that's the whole shipbuilding link as well, which I remember, I think one of your guests said there was, I think that was, wasn't it Bubbles? I think, yeah, it was Bubbles who said that his connection was through the shipbuilding yard as well.
He did, yeah.
And so basically it all came through from that. So it was with a heavy heart that we left. And you know, there was 4 generations of my family in that ground, spotted around all over the place, North Bank, South Bank, upper, lower, you name it. But yeah, we were all there. And
I was never there, and it's hard for me, you know, because I never had the opportunity. And but at the same time,
mate, it's completely understandable. You know, it's not like for me, where you jump on a couple of trains and that's it, you're there.
But for people who like you, who have, you know, generations of West Ham, it has to be, you know, I can't imagine that, because I wasn't there, you know, but it had to be tough for you. Yeah.
It was, and but one of the things I want to ask you, because obviously as a visitor, you've been to the London Stadium a couple of times now. Can you remember what the first game was?
Man U. My first match.
Yeah.
Or the first match, or the first match
at London Stadium.
First match. It was Juventus, the friendly.
Ah, perfect. Abysmal game, unfortunately, but we knew we were going to get hammered. Beautiful day. We all got sunburnt. We all got massively sunburned on that day. None of us expected that.
That was, you're asking, what was the first match at the Boleyn? I mean, sorry, at the Olympic Stadium, or my first match?
Your first match at the London Stadium.
My first match. No. That was the first match at the Olympic Stadium. I'm sorry. My first match was Man United last year. I went to the last 2 home games last year. We drew 0-0 against Man U, and that was dreary and drab, and they could have fought more. I mean, they were playing a lot of their youngsters, and it pissed me off, which I ended up saying on the West Ham Fan TV fan cam, that, you know, there was no fight. They could have just stepped it up a little bit and taken that match. They could have taken points from that match, but they didn't, because that's David Moyes. You know, he was playing it safe. Now the Everton match, the last game of last season, the last home match, that was 3-1. You know, Arnie scored and Lanzini scored, and I mean, that was just a brilliant match to be at, and the atmosphere was electric. I mean, you know, I kept hearing all these horror stories about, oh, you're going to hate it. You know, it's not the Boleyn one. I'm like, well, I haven't been to the Boleyn, so I can't, you know, relate to that. But they're like, oh, it's going to be horrible. There's no atmosphere. Half the seats are going to be empty. And no, I mean, both those matches, the place was fucking packed. The place was packed. The atmosphere outside of the stadium, it was iffy, because you had to be at a pub in order to feel the atmosphere, you know. And then once you're in the stadium, it was electric. It was fantastic. They were cheering, they were singing, and it was super loud, and it was great inside the stadium. I've said this on my show a million times, that my biggest problem is just Stratford. There's no connection between the pubs and the atmosphere there in the stadium itself. Like, once you're in the stadium, the atmosphere is fine. It's just getting there. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, 100%, and that is half the problem. Everybody, including myself, me and my mates, we used to come out straight out of the supporters club, and 5 seconds we were at the turnstile. Yeah. Everyone really misses that, and quite rightly so, because that's the problem. We've all got to leave 20 minutes, half an hour before the game starts, to leave the pub,
Mhm.
finish our drinks, walk, do the walk, which there's there's 2 or 3 routes that people can take, and then
Yeah.
there's the queuing up outside. But people seem to forget that we used to queue outside the turnstiles as well. So that and sometimes they were quite lengthy. They're not as bad as they are because obviously we're 2/3 more capacity than we
Mhm.
were beforehand, especially now with this season, with it being 60,000 capacity as of January.
Mhm.
But one of the reasons why the Everton game, it holds a lot of in my heart last season, was because of how all the fans were singing to Sam Allardyce for most of the game. Everyone was really, really letting him know how we all felt after the end of his tenure. Now, my argument for Allardyce is a very, very thin one, because at the end of the day, we had some, as you said, when we were down in the Championship, we had some brilliant games. We were on target for finishing second and therefore getting automatic promotion. And then it just seemed to fluff up like it always does. And we went
Yeah.
through the brilliant playoffs. And I was very, very glad to be at the second leg of the second leg of the semi-final, the playoffs. Some very, very interesting songs being sung to John Terry that day as well, because obviously the news what broke
Yeah.
a few months beforehand, and
Oh, yeah.
he made the stupid mistake of being in a box. And then, of course, when everybody noticed, we all sang the songs towards him, myself included. And then that horrendously painful but beautifully satisfying at the same time playoff final with Vaz Tay and his killer goal 2 or 3 minutes before the end. That we didn't deserve to win that up until the last few minutes of the game, because it was, for me, it was very, very painful to watch. Blackpool played fantastically well. We weren't brilliant, but it's just how football goes, and that for me was just, that's the best day out ever.
There was just an aura. There was a glow around the club that year, and even though we finished third, and it's not necessarily likely if you finish third that you're going to win the playoffs. I mean, not all the time, and there was that worry that, oh shit, now we got to do the playoffs. But at the same time, you had that feeling that we're going to make it, man. You just had that. Big Sam, one of the good things about him is that he's a larger than life character, and then when you have him as a manager, especially in a championship level, you get that sense that no, he's got us. There's a whole new change around the club, a whole new feel around the club. We're moving up. We're going up. And that match itself, that playoff final was a tough watch. I mean, technically for me, but also, Blackpool was in it, man. They wanted it. You could see that they wanted it. And we had a lot of major injuries that game, and we had injured players playing, and we still managed to pull it off. And that's what made it so much more exciting when Vaz Tay got his goal. It was electric. I fucking screamed. I almost smashed my laptop. It was bananas. But yeah.
So obviously, talking about, since we got back to the Premier League in that case, what do you think about Nolan in terms of how the club treated him once we got back into the Premier League, and he did this technically on course for his second season?
I thought that Nolan, I thought he was treated well in the beginning. I thought he was treated fine in the beginning. He was still the captain. I mean, he was, it's the last season at the Bowl-In was where we missed him. I mean, we didn't necessarily need him, but at the same time, it was horrible. And the fans were turning against him, even the season before. The fans were turning against him like they were turning against Big Sam. I mean, they were like, just because he's Allardyce's number one guy, doesn't mean he should be starting all those matches that he had the season before. So that would be the 14-15 season. Because, he started to lose his legs and whatnot, but he still found himself in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. And that's how he scored most of his goals. He wasn't a prolific, super fast, tricky flair player, but he was always in the right place at the right time. And I loved him as a player, but the club treated him like shit. And they should have treated other players like shit, and they haven't. It's really bizarre, and I hope they don't do the same thing to Noble. I mean, they won't, because obviously Noble's a different character. But I'm just saying, as a captain who's getting older, I hope he doesn't end up getting the same treatment when his legs go.
You see, I'm glad you said that, mate, because that's exactly the same how I feel about Nolan. The reason, one of the reasons why the fans started turning on him was exactly that these legs were starting to go. He was a bit like Bobby Moore in that sense. He was never the fastest, but he was always a sort of pass and stop player rather than when things were trying to move on into the momentum of everything, that it was more, we were trying to adapt, as we still are in since Allardyce, the pass and move game, which is slowly but surely coming in. But for me, one of the reasons why I didn't like having Nolan around was because he never played over Christmas. He always made sure he was booked enough times to be suspended for at least one or two of the games over Christmas, and that's what a lot of people really, really took issue on. And like for example, when we played Newcastle at home, which was one of, if I remember correctly, was one of Carroll's first games when he came in on loan, that we just saw everything that was right about that partnership. Carroll, Nolan, if I remember correctly, scored within, was it a minute and a half, I think, if I remember correctly, of that game, or if it was certainly one of them anyway. But that's the thing. Nolan is still held in high regards in certain areas, not so much as now. And that's my worry about Mark Noble. As much as I love the bloke, he is, as you say, he is Mr. West Ham through and through. He's been with the clubs pretty much since he was like 8 or 9. He knows what everything is, and he knows the club inside out. And because people seem to want to, focus their negativity, shall we say, especially on social media platforms, like this included, where they just seem to think that everything that's going wrong is Noble's fault. Everything that Noble does right, nobody notices. And that's what really gets my back up about our fan, and not just our fan base, but fan bases in general. They will always pick on a player, regardless if he's doing well or not.
Yeah, but they especially point fingers at the oldest player, who's the easiest to, or one of the older players. Like the guy who's been around forever. Like they did that with Nolan. It's just that once they get replacements for them, and those replacements start doing well, and then or there's potential for the replacements to do well, and then Nolan keeps getting matches and playing time over that other person, and then people get pissed, and then they're like, well, it's got to be Nolan's fault. Get rid of him. And it's actually, it was Big Sam's fault. But yeah, the same thing with Noble. I mean, when you have a bench like we had, the fans most of the time would say, you know what, when he has a bad game, it's all Noble's fault, and they should have started somebody else instead. This guy's, you've got to go. But here's my thing: they need to win a trophy for Noble. First and foremost, that has to be done, because if Noble finishes his career without a trophy, and I'm not counting the Betway Cup thing, a trophy, if the
Playoff Cup as well, for that matter,
he'll never. Okay, yeah, you get the playoff final, but I mean, I don't know, man. He won't be in this high regard once he's gone. I mean, 3-4 years after he's gone, people will not even remember him. I mean, like they remember Billy Bonds or a Bobby Moore or whoever who's won trophies. And I'm afraid that could happen unless they start giving a shit about the cups. That's our best chance to get him a trophy, and they completely blew it this year and even in years past. That's a problem. But I mean, I would love to see him hoist a trophy, and for him. For Noble more than us as fans. I mean, we want a team who's regularly going to play in Europe. So that's what we really want. But and like you were talking about in your FA Cup video, it's the fans really they give less a shit about the FA Cup now than they did 20 or 10, 20, 30 years ago, and it seems to be getting worse and worse, unless you're that underdog team. But no, we should give a shit about it for people like Noble. Not for the fans, but for Noble, man. He needs a freaking trophy. The amount of service he's put in, and because if he doesn't, like I said, it's his career is what? What's his career? Matches played, appearances for what? What did he do? Did we win anything?
Yeah, failed England appearances as well, for that matter. He was captain of the England under-21s and never got a full call-up. as an adult. So it's just I agree 100%. It would be nice. There's obviously a plan in place. Dave Walker touched on it last night. There is clearly a plan in place of trying to get something together to push on to that next level. The problem is, it's just as we talked about, was it 2 or 3 weeks back, where we just seem to be going for injury-prone players, ergo they're cheaper, and therefore we're still suffering with 6 or 7 injuries every single game, and that's what's holding us back. Don't get me wrong, and we always have a fully fit squad by the end of the season, and with the exception of Yarmolenko and Reed, and obviously Carroll, but he's gone pretty much in the next couple of weeks anyway. We'll come on to in a little while, but you know, it's the same for lack of a better way of putting it, the holding pattern. You know, it's also exactly the way we could bring in some great new players. Everybody's working well. Then a few months in, a couple of key players get injured, and which is nobody's fault other than the people that normally cause the injuries in the first place. And then the same old West Ham starts. And the difference for me is I seem to be the only one at the start of the season that said we'll finish no higher than 10th, and I still stand by that. I still stand by that 100%, purely because you can't take a manager of Pellegrini's credibility. Don't get bearing in mind under the first few games of Bilic, we beat Man City under Pellegrini. You know, we do have a history of going against managers' reputations. For example, as I say, this is the first time he's finished outside European qualifications, and with the exception of his earlier career, when I think it was it Valencia or one of the Spanish teams, Malaga, sorry, yes. He even though he had a mid-table to high-level team at that point, he's never really come into a club, especially in the last 10, 15 years, where you have to get players in on a very, very tight budget that will work hard for a lot of money, but are working for the money and not the club. And that's the worry that it's been for this season. But that set aside, I think personally we've had a better season than we did under Moyes' tenure and under Bilic's tenure in that last of the season. Moyes' first season, obviously, of course, we finished 8th with a plus goal difference, which hasn't happened for a while. That Stoke away game at the end of the season, where we were 20 minutes from securing 7th position. We were leading the game and we lost it. It was that was painful, but you could see there already with the likes of the Frenchman that nobody wants to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
Also, I think, if I remember correctly, we still had Alex Song at that point as well. So you could see that there was that intention to get there. It's still going to be a few years off, but I hope and pray that Pellegrini and Noble, for that matter, as you're saying, are there when it happens. When we get into Europe and if we get into Europe and we finish the campaign on a quarter-final, then Noble can hold his head up high in that sense if he's in that squad. But yes, it will be absolutely great for us to win at least one trophy, whether it be the League Cup, it be the FA Cup, which, let's face it, are realistic options over the next 2 to 3 years.
I'd like to talk about Bilic for a minute here, because
I thought you might say that. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I think that if you look at his career, I mean, he's a piss poor manager. I mean, he really is. I don't know. He's done okay, but never really super successful. I mean, I wouldn't count that stint in Turkey, but my point is, he inherited an amazing squad, and he got fucking lucky, in my opinion. I mean, he got extremely lucky with the players. I think that if you look at even the substitutions in the that he made and the lineup choices he had, I mean, he could have picked anybody for the lineup, but his substitutions were even questionable in that winning season that we had, where we finished 7th or something like that. Yeah, I think we finished 7th or 8th. The final bowl-in season. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, that anybody could have fucking done that. Dave Sullivan could have come in and managed that season. We would have finished 7th or 8th. But my point is, since then, he's ruined a lot of players for us, and not only that, but for their careers. You had players that he was playing out of position all the fucking time, all the time. He did a lot what Pellegrini was doing this year and changing the lineup so damn much and pissing off a lot of players by doing that. Like, he had all the talent. You got to stick to a team and have some continuity, and then they can build rapport with each other, and then they'll perform well. And he couldn't do that. I mean, he was always under fire, whether it would be the fans or whether it be the board, and he'd always just pick the shittiest. I mean, not the shittiest, but he always picked the wrong lineup, man. And he was playing players out of position. When he did bring in Arnautovic, that was very smart, and because he's a winger. He never played him at striker because that's not what Arnautovic is. That was one of the only good things that I could say about Bilic. Everything else I could say about Bilic is not good. So I'm going to stop there. But anyway, yeah, I don't have a high opinion of him. I do think that this season, looking in retrospect, yes, it is much better than it has been over the last few years. I'm glad we didn't keep Moyes because it would have been... I don't know if we would have got the transfers that we got, the players that we got. I'm happy with the players that we have. It's just, how real are these injuries, man? I know people do really get hurt and stuff like that, but when you have people who have habitual injuries and they're always random, they're never the same things. I tend to think like an Andy Carroll, he just likes not playing, man. I mean, I think that, my personal conspiracy theory with that is that, I feel that is bullshit. I don't think Andy Carroll was injured as much as he's come off. We could have used him, a lot better. He was happy the first year that he was here on loan, very happy, and he played a lot. And then just shit hit the fan, man. He got used to not playing and spending time in Spain and Vegas and Tenerife and everywhere else. And why not when you're making as much money as he's making? He just doesn't have the heart and soul for the game, is my point. But anyway, that's my couple of rants for you.
Well, at the end of the day, mate, I agree with you 100% for the majority of it. What annoys the hell out of me is when we see Bilic, when he's a pundit, he analyses players. When he, like for example, what he did for the World Cup and our game against Man United. I watched the stuff he was talking about. His mind is perfect. He points out exactly who needs to be shut down, who needs to go out and do it.
He's so smart about it too. He's so cocky about it too. When he was talking about the whole Dimitri Payet saga, you're talking about, that same interview. I think it was the Manchester United match. He's full of shit. He really is. He's so cocky about it too. And I don't like that, man. I mean, but go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
All right. I know this is an open wound for you at the minute, mate. So we'll put the plaster back over it in a minute. But yeah, as I say, since you're 100% right. Since that first season and the miraculousness that we stayed up in the first season of the new stadium, he's not done very well. But he's got the brain behind it. So maybe a lot of the stories that were coming out at the time that he was too soft on the players and therefore they weren't respecting him enough and so they weren't playing for him. I get that that could be all of it. That can't be all of it, but there's obviously going to be the majority of it. Now, the thing is obviously that we've got the last game of the season on Sunday. So, putting that aside, what has been your favourite game of the season?
My favorite game this season, besides the Tottenham match, because that should be a given. There's nothing. I mean, that just ticked all the boxes for everybody. Other than that, I would say the first Everton match. I mean, the one Everton away. I think that was
one of the season.
Yeah, that was brilliant. You got this false sense of, okay, the tide's turned. Here we are. Here's what our team can do. Yes, here we go. This is what was going to happen all season long for the rest of the season. It finally got it. And then Yarmolenko gets hurt. And then shit hits the fan. And then, but that game, it just, the feeling of that match, it was great. It was perfect. It was the most exciting, other than the Tottenham match, obviously, away.
Yeah, agree 100%. I mean, that was one of the best away days I've ever experienced. Brilliant. Awful stadium on the outside. It looks like a business building. We go inside and the pitch is absolutely perfect. The setup is beautiful, and it's And that's to a degree, I kind of think that's probably what made that even sweeter, was because of the fact that if we'd had purchased the stadium and built it and been able to modify it properly, or built our own ground over a couple of years, then it wouldn't have felt so bad. But because we're in a rented accommodation, let's not mix words about it. But even though that Man City are in exactly the same situation, but it just takes that little bit of the atmosphere out, because you walk through the grounds and you see the tarpaulin over the original seats, and it just kind of makes it feel like a bit of a cobbled together stadium. I mean, I like the stadium. It's just not for football in any shape or form. It's impressive when you go past it on the train, or you're walking up to it in the.
It could be with a lot of work.
Again?
It could be with a lot of work and a lot of money.
Yes.
The stadium isn't the issue as much as it is the atmosphere outside the stadium. And I feel so awful for all of the businesses that were outside Upton Park that were promised that they would get, prime locations and first dibs on spots over around the stadium. All those local businesses were going to be moving over to Stratford, and that shit didn't happen. But here's the thing: is that you're right. They should have built up Upton Park. They should have built up. There was another stand that they could have built up and give us another, 10, 20,000 seats. But the thing is that it wasn't going to make Sullivan and Gold any money. You know what I mean? They saw money when they saw the London Stadium, and they saw, that's their cash cow. Is they're going to make more money, from that move because they're going to get more tourists, more everything else, and it was just a smart business move on their end. They don't give a fuck about the club when it comes down to that, because they could have put some money into the Bowling Ground, but they didn't, because it was less money involved. There's less seats. They weren't going to be able to get the 60,000 seats, man. Over there. And that's what they wanted anyway.
But the problem is, at the same point, was that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about, is that we were originally trying to buy the place. We wanted to buy it. The LLDC said no, because they wanted it for more uses just than football, and that's where it all starts. And I'm very glad that all the legal stuff has been sorted out. That was at the beginning of the around about January, February this year. Everything else that comes out about the stadium now, including the article that came out a couple of days ago about how much money they're spending, the LLDC are spending. From the taxpayer in terms of trying to promote the place, get sponsorship, etc., etc. A year ago, that would have been reported that West Ham were doing that. So there's more focus now on the way that the government and the groups have been running the place, more than it's all West Ham's fault. It's all West Ham's fault. Some of it is. I'm not a fan of the board in any shape or form. They have done a lot of things wrong, which could have easily been turned about. For example, as Wayne and I were talking about on the first time I came on your channel, talking about Karen Brady, and that was, she could have come out and apologized for half of the stuff that she's done, but she hasn't. She's stuck by her guns, and it just showed how arrogant all three of them. Well, I'll say all two of them really. Her and Sullivan. Gold is you can tell that there's a bit of schmaltz around when he talks about West Ham. You can tell that he's still selling it, but that there's still that underlying bubbling fan that you can hear. There's genuine love for the club, and the other two I just can't contest. I mean, let's face it, cards on the table, right? We're owned by a bloke who supports Swansea. Was it Swansea or it's Cardiff? It's one of the two. He has a spot for West Ham, but he's not a West Ham supporter like I am, like you are, like the fan base of both our channels. They aren't. They just aren't, and that's the problem. Gold is the media puppet for promoting the club. Karen Brady was the puppet to speak to when all the YouTubers were invited to speak to them and their views. She was that puppet because the other two couldn't be bothered to do it.
Yeah.
But we could have had things a lot worse than we are now. Like for example, as I said in my video, when Wigan won the FA Cup, they were relegated, and still to this day, 6 years later, they haven't come back. That could have been us under the and it wasn't.
That also happened a few years before. No, that was the League Cup. Never mind, not FA Cup. I was going to say Birmingham is another one that actually won a trophy the year they got relegated. I think it was the League Cup.
It was a League Cup.
But even still, I mean, they they were relegated. We haven't seen them in the Premier League since. Yeah, no, I hear you, man.
Well, I mean, the other day, the reason why the two Davids sold Birmingham to the first owner they could find was because they wanted to increase their stake and take over West Ham. So again, from a business point of view, I can understand why they did it, but Birmingham fans are very, very bitter by that, and I don't think, or I hope not, when it comes up to their 5 years of ownership next year. I really hope we don't get into that same situation. I really don't think it is, because there's too much behind it because of the way that the London Stadium is run throughout the entire year for events when we're not there, and etc. I don't think it's going to be sold down the river that badly, because at the end of the day, if we get relegated, it's going to look bad on the LLDC and the E20 group that the London Stadium is host to a relegated team that has no chance of coming back, and that's going to affect getting Muse in again. It's going to affect getting the Foo Fighters in again, because it will give out an idea to the world that the stadium isn't run properly. Yeah. And that's going to really we'll know it's not anyway. But from a business point of view, they're able to hide that by putting other events on there all the time. We touched on it a little bit earlier, Tim, about Carroll and the players, and a few players, the way they've been treated. But now, obviously, the end of the season is pretty much here and done. We're gonna be seeing Carroll and Adrian leave on freeze in a few weeks' time. I really hope that they don't get treated in the same way that Ginge was, that he was told by email that they weren't going to get his contract renewed. I really hope that they've learnt that lesson, because there was a massive backlash, myself included. When I found out about that, I jumped straight onto Instagram and I just put a video out saying, what the hell's going on? And I put up a video about that as well. Yeah. Now, I know how you feel about goalkeepers. We haven't spoken about Adrian yet. How do you feel about Adrian and the way that he's played since we had him under Allardyce?
It's unfortunately called karma. So I don't know if you remember when he broke in, there was nothing wrong with Juicy. Juicy was playing fantastic, and they just saw this opportunity to sign a young, at the time, goalkeeper from Spain and bring him in. And then one thing led to another. And then not only did that piss me off, because I thought Juicy was a great goalkeeper, even at his ancient age. Goalkeepers tend to play better, longer, later in their life. But anyway, after that, he had been nothing but ridiculed. And when they brought Darren Randolph in, and then now Fabianski, he's been treated like he's not the number one. And I honestly feel that if he was given the number one spot, told he's got the number one share, he is the number one. He's got no competition really, like what they did with Fabianski. I feel that we would have been fine with him, and he would have played even better in certain matches. But when you are a goalkeeper and you play once or twice in just cup matches, it's not your performance isn't gonna be that great, because you're not getting regular game time. You're not seeing those shots in those game time, that game time atmosphere all the time, and so yeah, when you get your shot, it's not gonna particularly be the best. You need regular game time. So anyway, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's karma, man. I mean, he did that. He pulled the same shit on Juicy, and we tend to, forget about that whole situation. And then it happened to him again, like I said. And then, but now I do feel bad for him, because he seems like a great guy. Everything that he's done for charity and for the community, for the fans, he's always been 100% nice to everybody. So it's a shame. And I felt that, he should have got more game time this year, but he didn't. So I wish him all the best. And, I hope he finds another club where he can get minutes, really.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, as we touched on the other week, he's looking to get regular football so he can break in.
He deserves it.
Yeah, he has 100%. The only problem is with Adrian is he's fine when he knows he's got competition. When he starts playing regularly, that swagger, that arrogance comes back, and it makes everybody nervous. That's my only issue with it. When he plays in cup games, he's phenomenal. Like, for example, season before last, when there was the rotation of Adrian played half the season, and Randolph played half the season. Yes, you're right. Missy was a fantastic player, but he was making the same amount of mistakes that Adrian was making at the same point, although we kind of ignored it because of how bad the defence yet again was at that point. But with, as I say, with Adrian, when Hart came in, I guarantee he said to the club, "I'm happy to sign for the next couple of years, but I'm gone after that." Because he was, like I say, he was ousted with Randolph for half a season. They brought Joe Hart in, which was just the biggest calamity for a long time. I mean, he was worse than Rob Green, and I love Rob Green. I thought at his heyday, I thought he was a very good goalkeeper, but again, made too many mistakes. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but for bringing in somebody like Fabianski, who I have been completely wrong about. I was worried about. We've brought in a goalkeeper from a relegated side. This isn't going to be good, and far from it. I mean, he obviously got their player of the year because he was the best out of it, and that's how bad the Swansea squad was at that point. But as I say, it's just, you're right. He loves the club. He bleeds claret and blue. Every time we score a vital goal and he's on the pitch, he screams his head off with pleasure about how good that goal feels to him. And I will miss him big time for that. But we need stability in goal. We've got that from Fabianski by what it looks like. But I'll be very surprised if he plays every single game next season. And that's the worry of who we're going to be able to bring in, because it's going to go back to normal. It's going to be, we'll try and either promote one of the youth players, which isn't going to happen because apparently they're not ready for it yet. But how do you know if you don't try them? Mm-hmm. Or at the same point, we'll get a goalkeeper on the free like we did with Randolph and like we did with Hart. Yeah,
I was never a fan of Randolph, by the way. I felt, especially watching his international matches, he's far. I mean, he's another one that just lets the easy shots in. He'll make a great, fantastic save or two, but then the easy shots, the ball is headed down the ground. He's always out of position. It just baffled me how Randolph got so many appearances with our club. It just really does. Anyway, that's another little rant. Anyway, real quick, man, I gotta go soon, but I just want to let you know that the show that you did with me with Bubbles is our most viewed show. It crushed our record with we did a show with Gio from Hammers Chat, and that by far was the most viewed episode, most liked, and everything else. And the show that you did with me, in what, almost a week time? Not even a week. It hasn't even been a week yet, right?
Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sunday. It was last Sunday. So it already has well over 1,000 views. Well over 1,000. Wow. And not everybody watched the whole thing, but but still, I mean, that's crazy. That episode was fantastic. And yes, Paul was fantastic. You were a fantastic co-host with that, so I appreciate that. Just want to say thanks.
And thank you for the kind words, mate. It was a beautiful. I really enjoyed it. It was very subdued. There was no argument. There was no, that he spoke exactly from the heart. It was absolutely beautiful. Really enjoyed doing it. Just very quickly, just because I know we're pressed for time here because of my technical abilities when it comes to this stuff. There's potentially 7 players going. And I say potential because obviously these are just rumours. I don't like to talk about rumours, but I wanted to touch on them because obviously to see your point of view from.
Yeah, I love rumours.
I hate them. I can't stand them because it just makes people argue for no apparent reason.
I'll believe anything.
There's a very strong chance that Reece Oxford is gone. There's also speak of Perez not even serving in full 12 months and going. Sanchez, Obiang, Masuaku, Hernandez, and even Hugo, which I think we've all completely forgotten about, to be honest. As X has confirmed on the West Ham Way podcast a few times, the majority of the reason why Hugo signing was done was because he was David Moyes' stepbrother. So the agent was. I
heard that. Yeah,
Hugo's stepbrother. So it was. I said at the time it was a token gesture to say that you wanted a striker. We've got a striker. Nothing wrong with Hugo. I thought for what he did, he put his heart in it 100%. He balls and all. I loved him for that. It was just Yeah, a token signing. So what do you think about those 7? Would you want to see all of those 7 gone, or would you want a few of those to stay?
I want to keep Masuaku, man. I just want him to play in the right position. I want him to be happy. When he's happy, he plays well. He plays well when he's pissed off too. It just depends on the day, I guess, and who's around him. We've seen some excellent matches from him this half of the year. We really have. You know, even in a position that he's not most comfortable. So he would be the one out of all of them that I would love to see most. Mark Noble has quoted on multiple occasions that Lucas Perez is the nastiest striker he's ever seen in training. I know it's just training, and we don't see what goes on in training, but that's a compliment, man. You know, and those are the type of guys you want to see more of. And he does score goals. He's another one of those sneaky bastards that are in the right place at the right time to get his goals. He doesn't shoot from 30 yards out and make amazing shots, but he gets goals. His goal to appearance ratio is super high, man. So I wouldn't mind seeing him around, but I really don't think we're going to get much money for him. So what the fuck? Why would we sell him then? You know, that goes with like Hugel too. We're not going to get any money for this guy. Like, just, I don't know, just keep him in the reserves or something like that, or send him back out on loan. I don't know. Byram, that's another one, right? Yeah, that's another guy that I had high hopes for, man. He was fantastic at Leeds. You know, his career, he was doing so well when we first signed him, and I thought that it was going to be the answer, you know, and he just really disappointed, made stupid, silly mistakes. You know, it was always like an awful mistake to make, too, whenever he made one. You know, it wasn't just, you know, the typical oops, you know, it was, what the F is he doing? Those type of things. So, yeah, see you later. What was the other ones you mentioned, man?
There's Reece Oxford, which we haven't seen.
Oh.
He's been out on loan at Germany all season. Sanchez, personally, I think giving Sanchez the boot is a little bit harsh. He's been out for 2/3 of the season. Hopefully, we'll get a bit of a lifeline next season. We'll see. But Obiang apparently wants to go back to Italy the same way. He's trying to push the move in January, and also Hernandez. Apparently he's happy, then he's not, then he's happy, then he's not, and apparently his head's on the chopping board as well.
I wouldn't be happy either if I wasn't playing all the time. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's one of those deals. So, and also if I didn't get service, if I wasn't playing with the right people behind me, I'd be pissed too. So listen, he's a fantastic player as long as everybody else is playing well around him. So that's a 50-50 for me. I could say bye-bye, or you know what, so what, we still have him, great, so long as he performs. Yeah, the other one, Obiang, I mean, listen, he's gone. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, he's made some fantastic goals for us in the past, and it's just he's not in it anymore. His heart's not in West Ham anymore, so see you later. In Sanchez, though, Sanchez is one that, first of all, it pissed me off when we signed him because he didn't really do anything to justify West Ham signing him. He came from a championship side, and he really wasn't all that great for them. So why the hell did we sign him? And then, you know, the game where I think it was a game before he got injured, the game he got injured, man, he made the most stupidest mistake to give up a goal. Yeah, the Watford game. It's do we really want someone like that? That's one as well. Like, if he was gone, I wouldn't give a shit. But my main thing is, though, I'd rather see someone like Josh Cohen come in. I'd rather see us give him an opportunity, give Marcus Brown an opportunity, and if they just don't step up in the preseason, then send him off on loan again and see you later, goodbye, like a Byram and a Hugel. So Hugel, see you later. Byram, see you later. All those other guys, pretty much see you later. I mean, the only one I really want to keep would be, I would say, Masuaku 100%, because I feel that he is getting unjust criticism for his performances this year. Yeah.
You know, for me, you're absolutely right. He's a winger at best. He's said it on many occasions on his social media platforms that he is a winger. He's not a defender. Having said that, he was very, very good against Spurs. Absolutely played out of his skin on that day, and also with the last couple of games he's been playing as well, which, you know, he has justified being at the left back position. But I can see why at the same point. Now, I didn't want to finish this video on a controversial topic, but there were two players personally I think we should leave, and it breaks my heart to say one of them. And Arnautovic is one. We've talked about it many times. I've mentioned it on the video why he shouldn't be here anymore. Basically, just purely because of his attitude. His attitude seems to be improving because there's no way we're going to get the fee that the club are going to want him for in the summer, unless he really bucks his ideas up at the start of the season. But it's not going to make any difference because the transfer window closes before the start of the season next season, as it did at the start of this season. So that's going to be very interesting. But for me, and it breaks my heart, this man, I absolutely love him to bits, and he was the best way to finish the Bowling Grounds season. He did the best thing ever. It's Winston Reid. I don't want him to go. Even as I say it now, my skin is crawling for me when I'm saying that I want Winston Reid to go. But like Andy Carroll, he's just too injury prone. We have not seen him at all. This season. We hardly saw him much of last season as well. But as I say, I love the bloke. I really, really do. I don't want him to go. But if there's a defender we need to get rid of to bring in some more stability, really is him. Possibly Ogbonna as well. But as an injury point of view, I know he's got 3 years left on his contract. But for me, it does. My heart hurts.
I would finish it up by saying that, listen, I Reid, unfortunately for me, how do I put it? I'm not as keen on him. I never have been. We've had many opportunities to sell him in the past, and we could have got a lot of money from him, from Manchester United even.
And Arsenal.
Yeah, and Arsenal. Yeah, we could get a lot of money from him. We should have. He did not step up and say, no, don't sell my partner. Don't sell Tompkins, don't do it. He didn't back his boy up, and we ended up getting stuck with him because they felt that he was better. And I go back to the statistics. I posted something about a month and a half ago showing the statistics of Ogbonna, of Reid, and of Tompkins over the last 3-4 seasons. And Tompkins by far was, appearance-wise and goals. Tompkins always knew how to be in the right spot during a free kick or a corner kick, or a rebound shot. I mean, he was always there, and he scored a ton of goals for us. And I'm pissed off about that. But anyway, the thing is, Reid, who is Reid anymore? I don't even, Reid's pretty much dead to me. Like, listen, I thank you for the last goal, Manchester, that at the bowl in, blah, 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 but someone else could have done that. You know what I mean? Just in my opinion, I really don't think it was anything special about him other than the fact that his body was in the right position at the right time for that one. But for the most part, overall, where the fuck has he been? Who are you, Winston Reid? You know what I mean? Like, go back to FC Midtjylland and whatever the hell it is in Norway and see you later, bye. So, sorry. Listen, I know he's done a lot of good things for us, and I appreciate his service, but there's a lot of other things that I'm not so happy about. So I'm 50-50.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And
you as well, my man. Good luck with everything.
Gone very, very quickly, as I knew it would be, and there's so much more we need to talk about. But
that's why I do it now.
You've got to go and look after you, pick your kids up, so that's fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, for all of those that are watching, I have no idea how many people are watching, if anything's going on, because we've just been engaged in the conversation too much. But thank you very much for watching. If you're new around here and you like what I'm doing, then by all means, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get to see more live podcasts when they go up. Put your comments in the comment section below if you're watching this back. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, guys. And also, if you'd like the video and you feel I deserve it, then by all means, please click the like button. Go out and check Tim's channel. As I say, it's American Hammers TV. I'll put a link in the description below once this stream is over to go and check them out. We've got some fantastic videos for you to watch. There's going to be more podcasts coming. We've got Wayne from Dallas Hammers. I'm going to be speaking to him on Wednesday afternoon, evening, as hopefully that's still going to be going ahead. So I'll obviously let you guys know when that's happening. So I'm looking forward to doing that with him as well, especially finding out why a West London boy moved to Dallas. It'd be very interesting to find out why that was. So in the meantime, guys, thank you very much for your time, and I will see you on Sunday.